Jungkook finds Jimin's hidden chat with their manager. What he uncovers changes everything. A shocking betrayal that BTS never saw coming. Why would you say that about me, Hyung? Jungkook's voice was low, barely a whisper, but it cut through the silence like a blade. His fingers trembled as he gripped the edge of the phone, eyes fixed on the glowing screen that displayed words he was never meant to read. Behind him, the soft hum of the backstage hallway buzzed like a warning. The room smelled faintly of sweat and leather from the costumes they had just taken off, but all Jungkook could smell was betrayal. The words on the chat thread blurred with every blink. He's too emotional. We can't count on him for the upcoming media tour. Maybe it's best we keep him in the background until he learns to act professional. That message was sent by their manager, but it was the reply underneath that hit harder than any stage fall. I agree. He's been dragging the vibe lately. Let's not include him in the core interviews for now. Just tell him it's a schedule conflict. Jimin, his Hyung, the one who once held him when he broke down after his father's funeral, the one who always defended him from industry vultures, the one who had laughed with him until sunrise on their first tour in New York. That same Jimin had typed those words cold, strategic, and calculated. Jungkook's knees buckled, and he sat down heavily on the black leather couch behind him. His chest heaved. His mind couldn't catch up with his heartbeat. The door clicked behind him. Jungkook. They're waiting for us to wrap. Jimin's voice died mid-sentence the moment he saw the phone in Jungkook's hand. There was a pause, a moment heavy enough to crush an entire stadium. Is that my phone? Jimin asked, his voice attempting to stay casual, but the tightness around his jaw betrayed him. Jungkook didn't look up. You didn't log out of your chat, Young. Silence again. And then Jungkook slowly stood, lifting his gaze to meet Jimin's. The younger's eyes were glassy, burning with confusion, hurt, and something far darker disillusionment. I didn't know I needed to be watched around the people I trust, Jungkook said, every word deliberate, trembling with pain. I didn't know I handled. Wait, let me explain. Jimin stepped forward, his hand outstretched as if he could undo what had just shattered. Jungkook flinched. Don't. His voice cracked. Just don't. The air in the room thickened. Somewhere outside, a staff member called out to check if they were ready for the post-show shoot, but neither moved. Time froze. Jimin lowered his hand and sighed. You weren't supposed to see that. Jungkook laughed, a dry, bitter sound. That's your defense? I was trying to protect you, Jimin said, desperation creeping into his tone. You've been off lately, and the managers were starting to question your performance. I had to say something before they made worse decisions. By joining them? Jungkook snapped. By feeding them reasons to sideline me instead of standing up for me? You think they listen to people who fight them? Jimin's voice rose. I was trying to manage it. I thought if I gave them what they wanted to hear, I could buy you time to get yourself together. I didn't need time, Jungkook said through clenched teeth. I needed someone on my side. Jimin took a step closer, his expression softening. You don't understand how much pressure I was under. Don't make this about you. The words landed with brutal finality. Jimin's mouth opened, then closed again. Jungkook exhaled sharply, like he was trying to breathe out the poison crawling under his skin. I saw how you looked at me lately. Like I was a burden. Like you were just waiting for me to mess up so you could justify pushing me aside. That's not true, Jimin whispered. Then why does it feel like it is? Outside, the hallway buzzed with footsteps and muffled chatter. And here, the air stood still between them. I want to believe you, Jungkook said quietly. But the words I read, they weren't twisted. They weren't taken out of context. You said what you meant. Jimin's face twisted in conflict, his hands balling at his sides. I didn't think it would come to this. It came the moment you stopped seeing me as your brother and started seeing me as a liability. That hit Jimin like a punch to the gut. Jungkook reached for his jacket, slinging it over his shoulder. He didn't want to cry, but the sting behind his eyes betrayed him. His vision blurred again, not from reading too long, but from something far worse. You broke something, Hyung, he murmured, and I don't know if you can fix it. He didn't wait for Jimin's answer. He walked past him and out the door, leaving the elder standing in the middle of the room, alone with guilt and silence. The door closed softly behind Jungkook, but to Jimin, it felt like the collapse of everything they'd built together. Backstage, the world moved on. Lights were dimmed, staff buzzed around, and another performance was being packed up into crates and cases. But for Jungkook, something had shifted forever. A thread of trust had snapped, and in its place was a hollow ache no music could fill. He walked down the corridor, surrounded by people, but more alone than he'd ever felt since his debut. And the words kept echoing in his head. He's too emotional. Let's keep him in the background. The betrayal didn't come with knives. It came in texts, typed by someone he once called family. The cold wind slammed against Jungkook's face as he stepped outside the venue. The sky over Seoul was heavy with dark clouds, as if the weather was trying to match the storm inside his chest. The light from the building behind him spilled out in fragments, illuminating his silhouette as he pulled his hoodie over his head and walked into the parking lot. He didn't know where he was going. He just needed to get away. Away from the cameras. Away from the lights. Away from Jimin. He clutched his phone in his pocket like it was a weapon, or maybe a wound. The memory of the chat still burned behind his eyes. He could see the words flashing like neon in his head, each one carrying the weight of a betrayal he hadn't seen coming. Every step he took echoed like thunder in his ears, and for a second, it was like the world had gone quiet around him. A voice called out from behind. "Jungkook! Jungkook, wait!" He didn't turn. He didn't need to. That voice was etched into him. I said wait. Jimin's footsteps chased him, fast and uneven. Jungkook felt his breath catch as the elder caught up, grabbing his arm roughly. "What do you want?" Jungkook hissed, pulling his arm free with such force that Jimin staggered backward. His voice was trembling, not out of weakness but from everything he was trying not to scream. "We can't leave it like this," Jimin said, panting, his voice raw from emotion. "Please." "You had your chance to say something when it mattered," Jungkook spat, his voice cracking. "Back when you were chatting behind my back with the manager. I didn't mean for it to hurt you like this." "Then what the hell did you mean?" Jungkook's eyes were burning now. "Because it sure as hell wasn't support. It wasn't brotherhood, and it definitely wasn't love." Jimin flinched like he'd been slapped. "I panicked, all right," Jimin blurted. "They were pressuring me to speak up. They said you were becoming unpredictable. So you threw me under the bus?" Jungkook stepped closer, furious. "They say I'm emotional, and your instinct is to confirm it to them? You know why I've been off lately? You've seen me struggle." "I didn't know what else to do," Jimin shouted, his voice echoing off the walls of the alley. "I was trying to protect you, Jungkook. If I didn't say something, they were going to pull you from the Japan tour completely." Jungkook stared at him in disbelief. "You lied to protect me?" Jimin's mouth opened, but nothing came out. That silence was louder than any scream. Jungkook laughed bitterly and shook his head. "You really think what you did was protection? You think that betrayal in private is any better because it wasn't said to my face? At least if you'd told me directly, I could have respected you." "I was scared, okay?" Jimin said, more quietly now. "They threatened my position too. They said if I didn't help keep the team stable, they'd start cutting lines. I didn't want us to fall apart. So instead, you made sure I was the only one falling." Jimin wiped his face, as if that could erase the shame sinking into his bones. "I thought I was being smart." "You weren't," Jungkook said flatly. "You were being cowardly." They stood there, two brothers from the same band, hearts fractured by silence and secrets. Jungkook's voice softened, but it didn't lose its sting. "You should have trusted me enough to talk to me first." Jimin's voice shook as he replied. "And you should have trusted me enough not to think I meant every word." There it was. The moment they both realized trust was no longer something either could claim. A black SUV pulled up to the curb. It was Taehyung. The door opened slowly. "Get in." Neither moved at first. "I said, get in," Taehyung repeated. "Louder now?" His eyes narrowed. Jungkook turned his back to Jimin and slid into the passenger seat without a word. Jimin hesitated, then followed, climbing into the back seat with a heart heavier than anything he'd carried on stage. The air inside the car was suffocating. Taehyung didn't speak at first, his fingers tight around the steering wheel. The tension was thick, coiling like smoke. "You two better fix this," he said finally, "whatever the hell this is." "Stay out of it, Hyung," Jungkook muttered. Taehyung turned to face him, his voice sharp. "Don't tell me to stay out of it when our entire team is holding their breath because of you two. You think no one noticed what happened backstage tonight?" Jimin looked away, his jaw clenched. "Do you think Hobi Hyung didn't catch the way Jungkook stormed out? That Namjoon Hyung didn't see the look on your face, Jimin?" Taehyung's voice was climbing, the staff are whispering. The crew is speculating. You're not just hurting each other. You're tearing apart the one thing we promised we'd protect. Jungkook's eyes flared. He's the one who betrayed that promise. Jimin's voice broke through. And you're the one who made it public. That shut everyone up. Jungkook turned sharply. What did you say? You exposed my chat, Jimin said, leaning forward. You knew the manager could see the device log. You wanted him to see that I'd left it open. So now I'm the villain for letting the truth come out? Jungkook shot back. I'm saying you didn't care who got hurt as long as I got humiliated, Jimin growled. Taehyung slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a halt on the side of the highway. That's enough, he shouted, turning around. Both of you, do you even hear yourselves? Outside, the world went quiet. Only the distant sound of passing traffic remained. Taehyung's voice dropped. You think this is about betrayal, Jungkook? Jimin was stupid, yes. But you're acting like you've never lied to us before. Jungkook's throat went dry. What do you mean? Taehyung locked eyes with him. You want to talk secrets? How about the meeting you took with your solo PR team last month without telling any of us? Or how about that podcast you almost signed on to where they were planning to trash the band, and you considered it? Jimin's eyes widened. Wait, what? Jungkook froze. How do you... Taehyung's voice was razor sharp. Because they reached out to me first. I was the one who warned you not to go near them. And instead of being honest, you played along until they cut the deal. Jungkook swallowed hard. I didn't go through with it. But you almost did, Jimin whispered. And you didn't tell us. Why? Jungkook's heart was pounding. Because I felt abandoned. Like no one cared what I was going through. So you kept your own secrets, Taehyung said. And now you're shocked that Jimin did the same? The car was still. No one spoke. The storm outside had finally broken. Raindrops began to hit the windows, slow at first, then faster, as if the sky itself couldn't hold back anymore. Jungkook leaned back in his seat, covering his face with his hands. The silence now wasn't angry. It was broken. Taehyung started driving again, but slower this time. No music, no conversation, just three boys in a car, headed to nowhere, haunted by everything they didn't say when it mattered. Back at the dorm, the other members had gone to bed. Jimin sat alone in the dark living room, phone on the coffee table, unread messages piling up. One from their manager, two from a staff member asking for a damage report, one from Hobie asking if everything was okay, but none from Jungkook. He looked down at the group photo on the wall. All seven of them, laughing, arms around each other, frozen in a moment where everything still made sense. He stared at it for a long time and whispered, I didn't mean to lose you. From the hallway, Jungkook heard it. And for the first time in hours, he didn't feel angry, just tired. So incredibly tired. He stood there in the dark, the words Jimin had said earlier still echoing in his head. You weren't supposed to see that, but he had. And once you see the truth, it never leaves you the same. The night didn't end. It dragged into the next morning like a wound that wouldn't close. Jungkook hadn't slept, not a second. He sat on the rooftop of their dorm building, knees pulled to his chest, hoodie shielding him from the cold dawn that crept over Seoul like a slow, painful truth. His eyes were red, not from tears anymore, but from staying awake too long, thinking too hard, feeling too much. He could still hear Jimin's voice from the living room below. That whisper, that broken admission. I didn't mean to lose you. But that's exactly what had happened, hadn't it? The door creaked open behind him. He didn't need to look. The footsteps were soft, but hesitant, like the person behind them was unsure if they had the right to be there. You couldn't sleep either, Jimin said softly, sitting beside him without asking for permission. Jungkook didn't reply. The sky above was turning pale blue. Cars were beginning to crawl along the Han River. The world kept moving, and that felt like the cruelest thing. I don't know what to say, Jimin whispered. Then don't say anything, Jungkook replied, eyes never leaving the skyline. I was wrong. Jungkook clenched his jaw. We've already had this conversation. No, Jimin said, voice trembling. We had the blame conversation. We haven't had the truth conversation. That made Jungkook look at him. Jimin was pale, lips dry, eyes sunken. Whatever mask he wore for the cameras was gone now. What sat beside Jungkook was a man who looked like he was unraveling, thread by thread. You think what I said in that chat was betrayal? Jimin started. And you're right. But what you don't know is what led to it. Is there anything that justifies stabbing me in the back? Jungkook asked, voice sharp but low. I was scared of you. The words hit like a slap. What? I was scared. Jimin repeated. Not of you, but for you. For all of us. You were changing, Jungkook. You were withdrawing, canceling vocal rehearsals, leaving group meetings early, snapping at stylists. You stopped showing up emotionally, even when your body was in the room. And when we asked, you brushed it off. We couldn't reach you. Jungkook looked away, biting the inside of his cheek. I thought, Jimin continued, if I handled it quietly, they wouldn't cut you from everything. But it spiraled. I became part of the machine that I was trying to protect you from. And you never thought to ask me why I was pulling away? Jungkook asked, his voice cracking. Not once? Jimin lowered his head. I did. So many times. But you shut me out. Jungkook's throat tightened. Because I didn't trust myself to speak without falling apart. Jimin turned to him surprised. Why? There was silence. Then Jungkook whispered. Because I was grieving someone who didn't die. Jimin blinked, confused. And Jungkook finally said the words he'd locked inside his chest for months. My father. Jimin's breath caught. Jungkook swallowed hard. He's not dead. But he walked out last year. On my mom. On me. One day he was just gone. No note. No warning. Just gone. Jimin froze. You never said, because I didn't want to be that guy. Jungkook snapped. The one with family drama. The one who can't hold it together. I was supposed to be the golden maknae, remember? The one who shines. Who's strong. I didn't want anyone, especially you, to look at me like I was broken. Jimin's hands shook. That's why you were off all year, he whispered. You were fighting that alone. Jungkook nodded slowly. And while I was trying to keep myself from drowning, you were telling the manager I was a liability. I didn't know, Jimin said again, barely audible. I swear to God, I didn't know. Would it have changed anything? Jimin didn't answer. Because they both knew the truth. The rooftop went quiet again. But it didn't last. The door slammed open behind them, and Namjoon burst out, holding a phone in his hand and looking like he'd just been slapped. You two need to come downstairs, he said, voice sharp. What? Jimin began. Now, Namjoon barked. They followed him in silence, down the stairwell, back into the dorm's living room where Taehyung, Yoongi, and Hoseok stood frozen around the TV. The screen showed a paused clip, one that made Jungkook's stomach drop. It was him and Jimin arguing outside the concert venue. Someone had recorded it, and worse, leaked it. The subtitle overlay wasn't accurate, but it was enough to create scandal. Jungkook confronts Jimin over secret betrayal. BTS drama spills into public view. This dropped an hour ago, Yoongi said, throwing the remote onto the couch. It's already on Twitter's top trending. And the comments are a bloodbath, Hoseok added grimly. Army is divided. Half are defending you, the other half are tearing Jimin apart. Who leaked this? Jungkook asked, stunned. Security footage, Namjoon said. But someone had access. Someone wanted this out. Jimin looked like he was going to be sick. Then Jungkook said something no one expected. I think I know who it was. All heads turned. He looked at the floor, then up at Taehyung. You remember last month? That former stylist who got fired after the wardrobe mix-up in Busan? Taehyung blinked. Minji? Jungkook nodded slowly. She texted me afterward, angry. Said we humiliated her. I never replied. What are you saying? Jimin asked carefully. I'm saying, she might have kept access to our internal systems longer than we thought. Yoongi's eyes narrowed. You think she leaked the chat? I think she's been watching us, Jungkook said. Waiting for a moment like this? Namjoon cursed under his breath. We need to call the label, Hoseok said. Jimin suddenly stood. No, they turned to him. I'll do it, Jimin said. It's my fallout. I'll take responsibility. You're not the only one in that video, Jungkook muttered. Jimin shook his head. But I was the one who started this chain. I need to be the one to stop it. And before anyone could argue, he grabbed his phone and stepped into the hallway. Jungkook sat down heavily, the weight of the past 24 hours pressing down like cement. Yoongi lit a cigarette, something he only did when stress reached critical levels. You good? No, Jungkook said honest, But I'm trying. Taehyung watched him quietly. You still love him, don't you? Jungkook flinched. What? Not romantically, Taehyung said gently. I mean, you love him like family. That's why this hurts so bad. Jungkook didn't respond. He didn't need to. The door opened again. Jimin stepped back in, face pale. What did they say? Namjoon asked. They're calling an emergency meeting, Jimin said. At headquarters. All of us. When? Jimin looked up. Now. The next hour moved like a blur. They arrived at Hybe headquarters, under heavy security, phones confiscated, privacy ensured. But no amount of silence in the room could hide the pressure boiling beneath the surface. Bang Si-hyuk sat at the head of the long conference table, his face unreadable. Next to him were two legal advisors, the head of PR, and their personal manager. The video clip was played. Again. This time, every line scrutinized, every gesture magnified. And then, the questions began. Why did this happen? Why wasn't this resolved internally? Why wasn't the security system flagged for unauthorized access? Jimin took it all. Shoulders back, voice steady. He admitted to the chat, to the fallout, to the tension. Then Jungkook stood. And to everyone's shock, he defended Jimin. He made a mistake, Jungkook said. But he wasn't the one who leaked the video. Someone used this to try and break us apart. Bang Si-hyuk studied him. Do you trust him again? Jungkook hesitated, then said, Not yet. A pause. But I want to. The room was still. Then Bang Si-hyuk leaned back. That's more than I expected. By the end of the meeting, a plan was in motion. Damage control. An official statement. A live apology. Together. But something had changed in the room. Jimin and Jungkook stood side by side, now not as friends yet, but as survivors of a wound neither expected. That night, before the press conference, they sat in the dressing room alone. Jimin looked at him, voice barely a breath. You didn't have to defend me. Jungkook looked back. Maybe not, but you did. He nodded slowly. Because I still remember the Hyung who sat with me all night when I was 17 and homesick, who stayed up late to rehearse harmonies with me, who said I was the heart of the group. I still believe that, Jimin whispered. And I believe you forgot, Jungkook said softly. But I'm willing to believe you'll remember again. Jimin blinked back tears. And for the first time in days, Jungkook offered a faint smile. I'm not healed, he said. Neither am I, Jimin replied. But maybe, Jungkook said, standing. We can at least start again. And when they stepped onto the stage together, side by side to face the cameras, microphones, and the world, their fingers brushed. Not by accident, but as a silent promise. This story wasn't over. Not yet. The flashing lights were relentless. Dozens of reporters crowded the entrance of the press hall as Jimin and Jungkook stepped onto the stage. Cameras whirring, questions rising like a swarm of bees, loud, chaotic, stinging. Jimin adjusted his mic with trembling hands. Jungkook didn't look at him. He hadn't spoken to Jimin since they left Hybe HQ after that tense, quiet car ride. They had rehearsed what they were going to say. A joint statement. Clean. Neutral. Control damage. But nothing about this was neutral anymore. Nothing about this was clean. The press moderator nodded toward them, cueing the start. Jimin leaned forward, his voice carefully even. Thank you for coming. We want to begin by addressing the video that was recently leaked and the confusion it's caused. Jungkook's jaw tensed as he stared out into the sea of black cameras. He couldn't see any faces, just glass eyes, recording his every breath. Jimin continued. There has been internal miscommunication, stress, and unfortunately personal conflict that spilled into public view. We deeply apologize for making our fans worry, and for breaking the trust we've always tried to honor. A hand shot up in the crowd. A journalist from an American outlet. She didn't wait for permission. Jimin, do you deny the chat's authenticity? Jimin blinked. No, I don't deny it. You regret it. Jungkook, another voice called. Are you accepting his apology today? Jungkook inhaled slowly. He was supposed to smile. Say yes. Move on. Instead, he leaned forward and said into the mic, That's not something you can answer in a press room. The journalists buzzed. Some smirked. Others whispered. Jimin's eyes flicked toward him, searching. But Jungkook kept his gaze locked ahead. I want to be honest, Jungkook said, surprising even the moderator. We've always prided ourselves on being transparent with our fans. So, I'm going to tell you the truth. The entire room stilled. I was hurt, he said, not just by what was said in private, but by what it revealed. I felt betrayed. I felt expendable. I didn't just lose trust in someone I called Hyung. I lost trust in the system that let it happen. Jimin's throat tightened. And even now, Jungkook added, I don't know if I've forgiven him, but I know that forgiveness is not a light switch. It's not a PR line. It's not something you slap on a press conference and expect fans to accept. Jimin's voice broke through, quiet. Then why are we here? Jungkook turned to look at him, finally, because, despite everything, I believe in redemption. A pause. And because I think our fans deserve to see us bleed, not pretend it never happened. The air was thick with shock. Not a single camera blinked. Later, when they stepped off stage, the silence between them returned. Not cold, but fragile. Like something cracked, but not yet broken. As they walked backstage, Taehyung was waiting, arms crossed, brows furrowed. That wasn't the script. Neither was this entire month, Jungkook replied, brushing past him. Jimin followed, slower. When Taehyung grabbed his arm, Jimin didn't resist. He's not okay, Taehyung said flatly. And I don't just mean about the press. Jimin nodded. I know. Do you? Taehyung stepped closer. Because he's sleepwalking through rehearsals. He hasn't picked up his guitar in weeks. And last night, I found him sitting alone in the laundry room at 3 a.m., staring at his phone. You think this is just about you? Jimin's face paled. I've been trying to fix it. No, Taehyung snapped. You've been trying to control it. Jimin looked away, shame curling through his spine. I'm scared, Tae. I don't know how to fix something when I'm the one who broke it. Then stop trying to be perfect, Taehyung hissed, and start being real. That night, Jungkook returned to the dorm late. Everyone was asleep or pretending to be. He tiptoed to the kitchen and poured water into a glass, but his hands were shaking again. He didn't want to go back to his room. He couldn't sleep in silence anymore, not when his own thoughts screamed louder than any stage crowd. He sat on the floor near the balcony door, legs crossed, head against the glass. He didn't cry. He just sat there until the door creaked open. He didn't turn. Jimin sat beside him. Minutes passed. Neither said a word. Finally, Jimin whispered, You once told me you didn't know what it meant to forgive your father. Jungkook closed his eyes. But you said, Jimin continued, that if he ever came back, you'd ask him why he left. Jungkook didn't respond. So, let me ask you something, Jimin said, voice raw. Why are you still here, if you don't think I deserve to come back? Jungkook turned his head slowly. Their eyes met, and he said quietly, Because I'm not my father. Jimin looked down, his throat working. And I'm not the same man who wrote that message. Then who are you now? Jungkook asked. Jimin looked at him for a long moment. I'm someone who wishes he had said everything out loud instead of typing it in fear. Someone who forgot that your silence was never a weakness, it was a cry. And I didn't hear it. Jungkook swallowed hard. I miss you, Jimin said. Not the performer, not the matinee. You, the guy who stays after shows to thank every dancer. The guy who used to hum off key in his sleep. The guy who used to knock on my door just to see if I was awake. I'm still him, Jungkook whispered, but I'm buried under too much noise. Jimin leaned his head back against the wall, tears gathering in his eyes. Then let me help dig you out. A long silence followed. Then Jungkook reached out and handed him a folded note. Jimin took it with shaking fingers. As he unfolded the paper, he saw his own name written at the top, then words scribbled in Jungkook's messy handwriting. It wasn't a song. It wasn't a letter. It was a confession. A timeline of the last 6 months. Missed calls from his dad. Anxiety attacks backstage. Moments where he nearly walked off the tour and disappeared. And at the end, one line that made Jimin's heart break. The only reason I stayed was because I still believed someone might notice I was drowning. Jimin looked up at him, face soaked with regret. I should have seen it. Jungkook didn't reply. He just looked at him and said, Then see me now. And for the first time in weeks, Jimin didn't turn away. He reached for Jungkook's hand, not as an idol, not as a colleague, but as a brother. And this time, Jungkook didn't pull away. In the quiet of the night, two broken boys sat beneath the stars, surrounded by the wreckage of trust, but finally beginning to rebuild something more honest. Not perfect, not polished, but real. And sometimes, real is the only thing strong enough to survive. The redemption wasn't finished. The rain returned the next morning, heavy, unrelenting, soaking the glass panels of the dorm windows like a cleansing no one asked for. It was as if the sky couldn't hold back the emotions their group refused to say aloud. Inside the practice room, the mirrors were foggy from the humidity of rehearsal. The scent of sweat, rubber soles, and tension lingered like invisible smoke. Hoseok was pacing near the speaker. Yoongi sat in the farthest corner with arms crossed. Taehyung leaned against the wall, tapping his fingers against a water bottle, and Namjoon stood in the center, unreadable. Only Jungkook and Jimin were missing. Again. They're late, Hoseok muttered, checking the clock. Again. We're not blind, Yoongi said, rubbing his temple. We all saw the interview. Things are still tense. Maybe we should have postponed the rehearsal. No, Namjoon cut in. We postponed it last week. We can't keep working around their personal war. Taehyung finally spoke, low and sharp. It's not just a war anymore. It's a civil collapse. That's when the door opened. Jungkook walked in first, dressed in black from head to toe, soaked from the rain, hoodie still up. Jimin followed a few steps behind, quieter, eyes heavy with fatigue, mouth set in a grim line. The air in the room shifted immediately. You could feel it. A vacuum of unspoken words, an invisible crack across the floor that separated them from the rest. Namjoon stepped forward. You're 40 minutes late. Jungkook said nothing. He dropped his bag in the corner and began stretching. Do you even care anymore? Namjoon asked, louder this time. Because if this is about punishing the group for what happened, then say it now. Jungkook looked up slowly. That's not what this is. Namjoon's tone sharpened. Then what is it? You want honesty? Jungkook asked, standing upright. Fine. I don't think I belong here anymore. The words silenced the room like a slap. Jimin blinked. What? I've been thinking about it, Jungkook said, voice tight. Long before the chat, before the leak, before the interview, something shifted. I don't know when exactly, but it did. Taehyung stepped forward. Don't do this. I'm not trying to make a scene, Jungkook replied. I'm telling you what I feel. You said last night you were willing to start again, Jimin said, confused. That you wanted redemption. I said I wanted to heal, Jungkook replied. But healing doesn't always mean going back to the same place. Namjoon walked toward him, slow, calculating. So what? You'll go solo? Join a label where you can finally control everything? Write angsty songs about betrayal and broken families, while the rest of us explain to the media why the golden maknae abandoned BTS? Don't twist this, Jungkook snapped. I gave everything to this group. Years, my youth, my identity. I don't even know who I am without BTS anymore, and that's exactly the problem. Yoongi's voice broke through the chaos, low but razor sharp. Then why lie to us for so long? Everyone turned. Jungkook froze. What are you talking about? He asked. Yoongi stood, calm and deliberate, walking slowly to the stereo and picking up a folded envelope from behind it. This arrived this morning, addressed to me. No name on the front, just Hyung. He tossed it on the ground between them. Jungkook looked down. It was his handwriting. I was going to leave, he whispered. 3 weeks ago. Taehyung's jaw dropped. What? Jungkook nodded slowly, his throat dry. The night after Busan. I packed my bags, wrote letters. That was one of them. Yoongi's eyes darkened. And you thought we wouldn't notice? I wasn't going to disappear, Jungkook said. I just didn't want to be here when everything finally collapsed. But you stayed, Jimin said quietly. I stayed, Jungkook repeated. Because you hoped we'd notice, Namjoon said, just like the letter said. Because I hoped someone would tell me not to go, Jungkook whispered. Because I wanted someone to make it feel like I mattered enough to fight for. Jimin's eyes glistened. And I was too busy trying to control your public image. Jungkook looked at him, the pain clear. You lied to all of us, Jungkook, Yoongi said. Not just Jimin. I know. Silence returned. Heavy. Unforgiving. Taehyung finally broke it. So what now? Jungkook looked around the room at the people who knew him better than anyone. And yet not at all. Now, I ask you all something I should have asked a long time ago. He stepped closer to them. Do you still want me here? Not as the golden boy, not as the media darling, but as the flawed, confused, emotionally exhausted human I've become? No one answered for several seconds. Then Hoseok nodded. Yes. Namjoon followed. Always. Taehyung stepped forward. But you need to stop walking away every time you're scared. Yoongi crossed his arms. And you need to stop pretending that silence is strength. Then all eyes turned to Jimin. He didn't speak at first. Then he stepped forward, looked Jungkook in the eyes, and said, I want you here. But not if you think I'm the reason you were almost gone. Jungkook's voice was quiet. You were part of it, but not the reason. Jimin nodded. Then let's both be better. Let's stop hurting each other and calling it healing. The room stood still, but something shifted. Forgiveness didn't come with fanfare. It came with honesty. They trained that day slowly, awkwardly, then fiercely. Like boys relearning how to breathe in sync again. Laughter didn't come yet, but neither did anger. Only rhythm, only sweat, only movement. That night, Jungkook didn't sit on the balcony. He sat in the living room with all 6 members, wrapped in silence but surrounded by presence. And that, for now, was enough. The elevator ride to the executive floor was suffocatingly quiet. Jimin stood pressed against the mirrored wall, hands clenched into fists in the pockets of his trench coat. Jungkook stood opposite him, arms folded, head slightly lowered, earbuds in but no music played. He just needed to block out the static in his head. Each floor beeped upward, taking them closer to a confrontation they weren't sure they were prepared for. 2 nights had passed since Jungkook's confession in the studio. 2 nights of silence, broken only by rehearsals and the ticking tension between every member. Hybe had scheduled an urgent private meeting with the group. The reason? Confidential. The room? The top-floor conference vault only used for crisis containment or contract war rooms. The kind of place where voices never left the walls. As the elevator doors opened, the hallway was dim, lit only by natural light streaming from massive tinted windows. 2 security officers nodded and opened the main doors. Inside, the rest of the members were already seated around the long conference table, Bang Si-hyuk at the head. But today, beside him, sat a woman none of them had seen before, dressed in a tailored white blazer, sharp glasses, holding a sealed black folder marked with a red stripe. Jimin sat down first. Jungkook followed, eyes narrowing slightly as he took in the tension in the room. Bang Si-hyuk cleared his throat. Before we begin, I want you all to understand that this meeting is strictly off the record. No statements, no recordings, no leaks. No one replied. The woman stood. My name is Director Han Se-yoon. I head the Internal Integrity Unit formed 6 months ago. This is about what happened during the Busan concert and everything that followed. Namjoon leaned forward. We've already addressed the leaked video. We released the statement. I'm not here about that, she interrupted smoothly. I'm here about the breach in your private chat logs, Jungkook. Jungkook stiffened. The others went still. Yoongi leaned forward. You mean the leak that exposed Jimin's messages? No, she said, setting the folder down. That was just a symptom. We're here to talk about the real disease. She opened the folder, revealing a series of surveillance images, screenshots from internal chat platforms, system access logs, time-stamped login attempts traced from multiple regions. On the final page, a red circle highlight surrounded one name, Minji. Taehyung cursed under his breath. I told you, Jungkook muttered, eyes flicking toward Jimin. She had access. Director Han nodded. Minji, your former stylist, retained administrative privileges to the cloud servers for weeks after her dismissal. She attempted to contact at least 4 current employees, including a junior manager in the PR team, offering compensation for anything that could damage specific members. Specific? Jimin asked, his voice tighter. Yes, she said. You, Jimin. And Jungkook. A beat of silence passed. She targeted the both of you? Hoseok asked, disbelief evident in his voice. Director Han sat down. The timing wasn't coincidental. This wasn't revenge over a wardrobe scandal. This was orchestrated. Bang Si-hyuk finally spoke again. She wasn't acting alone. What do you mean? Namjoon asked. She was approached, Bang said carefully, by a rival agency, one with a public image built on exposing the idol industry's darker underbelly. Yoongi scowled. They wanted to destroy us from the inside. Director Han nodded. They didn't need to plant anything. All they had to do was amplify your worst moments. Feed the fire you were already burning. Jimin looked physically sick. So she watched us. For months. Jungkook was stone still. How much did she take? Director Han opened another file. Private rehearsal footage. Dorm CCTV logs. A full clone of your group text thread from March to June. Including, she hesitated, including the night you had the breakdown, Jungkook. The entire room froze. What breakdown? Jimin whispered. Yoongi sat up straighter. What is she talking about? Jungkook slowly turned toward them, eyes dead. It was the night I didn't show up for the Japan media prep. I told you all I had food poisoning. Director Han continued, professional but not cold. He had a panic attack, alone in his car, outside the dorm. He blacked out for 40 minutes. Jimin covered his mouth. Taehyung looked like someone had punched him. You didn't tell anyone, Namjoon said, stunned. Why would I? Jungkook's voice was hollow. You all had bigger things to handle. Tour schedules, press, damage control. Who had time for a broken Jungkook? No one asked you to carry that alone, Jimin said, eyes shining. Why didn't you come to me? Because you were already calling me unstable behind my back. That silenced the room like glass shattering. Director Han placed a final photo down on the table. A freeze frame from the parking garage camera. Jungkook slumped in the front seat, eyes closed, pale, gripping the steering wheel with white knuckles. If this had gone public, she said softly, it wouldn't just be his reputation on the line. It would be his life. Bang Si-hyuk exhaled deeply. Minji was arrested this morning. Her devices are under forensic review. But this was a warning that no matter how tight we think our circle is, we're still bleeding at the seams. Director Han stood and collected the photos. You're a family. That's what made you strong. But now you're under surveillance, not by us, but by the world. If you don't stop feeding them with secrets and silence, they will feast on you. And with that, she walked out. The door shut. And the silence in the room was different this time. Namjoon leaned forward, hands steepled in front of his mouth. Jungkook, I'm fine. Jungkook whispered. No, Namjoon said, eyes sharp. You're not. I will be, Jungkook replied, standing. But I need to fix something first. He turned to Jimin. I need you to read something. Jungkook pulled out his phone and scrolled. His fingers trembled slightly as he opened a draft email. He handed the phone to Jimin without speaking. Jimin took it. Confused, he began reading. His hands shook halfway through. Yoongi stood up slowly. What is it? Jimin looked up, face pale. It's an apology, from me, written by him, months ago. Jungkook's eyes met his. I drafted it, but never sent it. I was going to send it the night after your birthday dinner. But when I walked into your room, you were already asleep. And then the leak happened. And then everything else. Jimin's voice cracked. Why would you apologize? Because I knew, Jungkook said. I knew I wasn't okay. I knew I was slipping. I just didn't know how to say it without sounding like I was weak. Jimin stepped forward and handed the phone back. I never needed you to be strong, Jungkook. I just needed you to be honest. I was scared that honesty would break us, Jungkook whispered. And the lie didn't? They stared at each other, suspended in that moment where everything had already burned. But the embers still glowed. Yoongi grabbed his bag and muttered, I'm going to the studio before this turns into another therapy circle. Namjoon rubbed his face. I think we all need one. But Jimin didn't move. Jungkook stepped closer. If you still can't trust me, I get it, he said. But please, don't think I ever stopped trusting you. Even after the chat, even after the silence, I still believed you'd come back for me. Jimin's voice was almost a whisper. And I did. Jungkook nodded slowly. Then, let's not let anyone else write our story again. For the first time in weeks, they hugged. Not as idols, not as performers, as brothers. And outside the window, the rain finally began to stop. The dorm was too quiet. It wasn't the calm of peace, it was the silence of fragile balance, of breath being held in anticipation of another rupture. After the meeting with Director Han and the exposure of Minji's infiltration, the entire team had been ordered on a 72-hour wellness hold. No rehearsals, no filming, no public activity. Hype didn't call it punishment, but that's what it felt like. Namjoon had retreated to his room, refusing to speak to anyone, unless it was necessary. Yoongi hadn't come back at all, choosing instead to disappear into his studio in Mappo with a thermos and 2 changes of clothes. Hoseok kept busy organizing drawers that didn't need organizing. Taehyung paced more than he sat. Everyone was unraveling in their own way, the way only people who had known each other too long knew how to. But Jimin was the one who couldn't sleep. It was 2:43 a.m. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the apology email Jungkook had written but never sent. Every word hit harder now that he understood the deeper context Jungkook had been unraveling for months. And yet, Jimin had missed it. Or maybe he hadn't wanted to see it. He sat up, kicked off his blanket, and padded quietly toward the kitchen, careful not to wake the others. But he wasn't alone. Jungkook was already there, crouched on the floor, arms wrapped around his knees, back against the fridge. The light from the open freezer door cast a bluish hue over his face, making him look paler than usual. He didn't even flinch as Jimin approached. Jimin leaned on the counter, watching him. "Can't sleep either?" Jungkook didn't answer. Instead, he said quietly, "You think they'll ever look at me the same again?" Jimin's chest tightened. "Who? The fans?" "The members," Jungkook said. "You." Jimin exhaled slowly, walking over to sit beside him on the floor. "I don't think we should ever look at each other the same again." Jungkook looked at him, startled. "Because we're not the same people we were 6 months ago," Jimin said. "And pretending we are would just break us again." There was a long pause. Then Jungkook whispered, "I'm scared I'm never going to find that part of myself again." Jimin looked down. "The part you buried?" Jungkook nodded. "The one that used to wake up excited for rehearsal. The one that laughed during live streams. The one that trusted you without hesitation." Jimin's voice cracked. "Then let me help you find him again." Jungkook blinked slowly. "Even if he doesn't exist anymore? Then we build someone better," Jimin said. "Together." The moment should have ended there. Should have solidified their truce, their slow path back to one another. But Jungkook wasn't finished. "There's something else," he said quietly. Jimin froze. "What do you mean?" "I didn't tell Director Han everything," Jungkook murmured. "There's something I found weeks ago. Something that changed everything." Jimin's stomach dropped. "What did you find?" Jungkook pulled out his phone and opened a secure folder, one protected by biometric ID. After a few taps, he handed it to Jimin. On the screen was a recording, dated 3 weeks before the Busan concert. The timestamp was late at night. The location tag, one of Hybe's locked conference rooms. It was audio only. Jimin pressed play. At first, only static. Then 2 voices emerged. One was unmistakably the manager. The other, Jimin's hand trembled. It was Taehyung. "Manager, if Jungkook's attitude keeps tanking, we may have to reassign media leads." Taehyung. "I told you weeks ago, he's not stable right now. You keep pushing him, and he's going to snap." Manager. "Then maybe we should start easing him out of key appearances." Taehyung. "If that's what it takes to keep the team from imploding, then fine." The audio ended. Jimin stared at the phone, unable to move. "No." Jungkook's voice was brittle. "I heard it 2 weeks ago. The audio file was sent to me anonymously. Same day the chat leak happened. I think whoever was watching us wanted me to know I wasn't just betrayed by you." Jimin's mind reeled. "But he was trying to protect the group." "By throwing me under the bus?" Jungkook's voice cracked. "By letting management reduce my role without even talking to me? Just like you?" I don't know what to say." Jungkook took the phone back, locked the screen. "Neither did I. That's why I haven't told anyone else. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. Confront him? Expose him? Pretend it didn't happen?" Jimin looked at him. "You're asking me? You were the first to betray me," Jungkook said. "But at least you had the guts to say sorry." Jimin stood up, pacing the kitchen now, running both hands through his hair. "We don't know what the context was. Maybe Tae thought he was protecting you. Maybe he didn't mean—" "Don't defend him," Jungkook snapped. "I'm not," Jimin said, turning. "But if we start turning on each other now, we're finished." Jungkook stood slowly. "Maybe we already are." Jimin's voice dropped. "Don't say that." Jungkook looked at him, his eyes so tired they seemed to swallow the light. "What do I do, Jimin? You tell me. You're the one who always tried to manage me like a PR crisis. What do I do with the fact that the people I loved the most were the ones who dismantled me piece by piece? Jimin stepped closer. You let them explain. Jungkook laughed. Not loudly, not bitterly, just quietly. Like someone who didn't believe anything anymore. You still believe in explanations? He asked. After everything? I have to, Jimin whispered. Otherwise, I can't keep loving any of you. Jungkook turned away. I'm going to confront him, he said. Tomorrow. Jimin reached for him. Wait, do you want me to come with? No. Jungkook didn't say anything else. He walked down the hallway, his figure slowly swallowed by the shadows of the dorm, leaving Jimin alone in the kitchen, with a screen full of betrayal and a heart that felt like it was being torn open all over again. He didn't sleep at all that night. The next morning, Taehyung sat in the rooftop lounge, sipping iced coffee, unaware that a storm was building beneath his feet. The sky was clear. The kind of morning that made you believe everything could be new again. Until Jungkook walked in. He said nothing at first. Just stood across from Taehyung, who looked up in surprise. You okay? Taehyung asked, brows raised. Jungkook pulled out his phone, hit play, and tossed it on the table. The audio played. Taehyung's expression didn't change. Not at first. When it ended, he sat still. Jungkook waited. You kept this, Taehyung finally said softly. I got it the same night the world found out about the chat, Jungkook replied. Tell me what it means. Taehyung looked down at his hands. It means I failed you too. Jungkook blinked. Taehyung exhaled. I told the manager what I thought would protect you. At the time, you were spiraling. We all saw it. I figured if I could make them back off. You didn't make them back off, Jungkook said. You let them sideline me. I thought it was better than letting them cut you out completely. You didn't ask me. No, Taehyung said. Because I didn't think you'd give me an honest answer. Jungkook's hands were shaking now. Do you even understand what it's like to be erased in real time by the people you thought would fight for you? Taehyung's voice cracked. I do now. Jungkook sat down slowly. So what do we do now, Young? Taehyung stared at the skyline. We stop pretending that love means silence. We start having the hard conversations, even when it costs us. Jungkook nodded. Because the silence almost killed me. They sat there, just the two of them, no words left. Just the sound of healing beginning in the space where truth had finally been spoken. No cameras, no apologies, just reality. And for the first time in months, it felt like the silence wasn't hiding anything. It was holding something. The dorm living room was filled with an eerie calm, as if the very walls knew something irreversible was about to happen. It was 3:11 p.m., and outside the summer sky was overcast, trapping the city in a muted silver light. Rain threatened, but didn't fall yet. Inside, all 7 members of BTS had gathered after a rare mandatory summon from Bang Si-hyuk. None of them knew why. Jungkook sat at the far end of the couch, jaw tight, his eyes fixed on a chipped corner of the wooden coffee table. He hadn't said a word in 10 minutes. Jimin stood by the window, arms crossed, watching Jungkook with a tension that hadn't left his body since the rooftop confession. Taehyung was on the floor, cross-legged, looking between them with unreadable eyes. Yoongi leaned against the wall, arms folded. Hosok tapped his leg rhythmically, gaze flicking toward the clock. Namjoon paced slowly near the hallway, his fingers twitching with restrained energy. No one spoke until Bang Si-hyuk himself entered the room. When he did, it was without the usual warmth. He closed the door behind him, eyes scanning each of them as if trying to decide who would be the first to break. I'm not here to manage your emotions today, he said. I'm here to prevent a collapse. The word collapse hit harder than anyone wanted to admit. Bang pulled a chair into the center of the room, sitting down in front of them like a disappointed father facing a broken family. I've received 2 separate whistleblower complaints within the company, he said, both claiming that there are more than just emotional rifts happening between the members, that there is active sabotage. Hoseok sat upright. Sabotage? Bang nodded grimly. Someone within your inner circle has been feeding information to Hybe's competitors, things that go beyond the Jimin chat leak, internal creative documents, song drafts, copyrighted choreography concepts. Yoongi cursed under his breath. Bang turned slowly toward Jungkook. And they were all traced back to your cloud folder. Jungkook's head snapped up. What? Namjoon stepped forward. That's impossible. Bang didn't flinch. There were 2 confirmed file transfers. They were downloaded using Jungkook's ID and device stamp. I never sent anything, Jungkook said immediately, standing now. You think I'd leak our own work? After everything? Calm down, Bang said. I'm not accusing. I'm informing. Whoever did this had access to your system. They mimicked your fingerprint scan using a third-party bypass. The question isn't whether you leaked it. The question is, who inside this dorm wanted it to look like you did? A silence fell so complete it rang. Jimin spoke first, voice razor sharp. You think one of us framed him? No, Bang said coldly. I think one of you is hiding something. And if you don't come clean, I will have to bring in legal counsel and external forensics. That means contracts get frozen, debuts delayed, entire tours compromised. Wait, Taehyung said, slowly rising. You're serious? Bang stood. I'm deadly serious. He walked to the door but stopped before leaving. You have until tomorrow morning to bring me the truth, he said. If I find out myself, the consequences will be worse for everyone. And then, he was gone. The door clicked shut. Jungkook looked around the room like a bomb was ticking between them. So which one of you wanted to bury me deeper? No one answered. Yoongi finally stepped forward, speaking as calmly as he could. Before we turn on each other, we need to think clearly. This could have been someone outside. No, Jungkook said. Bang PD said it was someone internal, meaning someone here knew how to get into my system. Someone here knew my schedule, my patterns, my folder names. Jimin clenched his jaw. You think it was one of us? You tell me, Jungkook shot back. I already found out what you said about me. I already heard Taehyung sell me out to management. What's one more stab to the back? Don't, Taehyung said, standing. Don't put us all in the same category. You all left me to rot, Jungkook said, voice rising. So don't act surprised that now I'm wondering who finished the job. Hoseok raised his voice, rare fury trembling in his tone. We've all been at our limit. Don't pretend you're the only one bleeding. I was the only one being erased, Jungkook shouted. Jimin stepped forward. Enough. Jungkook turned to him. You said you were sorry. Then prove it. Help me find out who did this. Jimin's eyes narrowed. You really want to do this? I need to know who I'm sleeping next to, Jungkook said. Yoongi slammed his fist against the wall, silencing them all. Then we do this the right way. One by one. No lies. No shouting. Just truth. He walked to the center of the room. We sit, he said. We talk. Each of us. And we clear this up like a damn family. Reluctantly, they agreed. Yoongi sat. First to speak. I've been in my studio every night until 3 a.m. The only access I've had to Jungkook's files is when I helped produce his solo track in February. I deleted everything after the mix was done. Ask the engineer. No one interrupted. Next came Hoseok. I don't even use the shared cloud anymore. I keep everything offline since the 2019 server glitch. Ask the IT team. Namjoon followed. I manage logistics, not creative. I haven't touched any of your solo materials in months. My laptop doesn't even have access permissions to your folder tree. Then Jimin. His voice was steady. I don't know your password. I've never tried to open your folders. But if someone did this to frame you, then I swear I'll find them before Hybe does. Jungkook said nothing. And then it was Taehyung's turn. But he didn't sit. Instead, he walked to the window and said something that turned the air to glass. I know who did it. Every head turned. Taehyung faced them, fists clenched. It was me. The silence was instant, paralyzing. Jungkook's voice came out strangled. What? Taehyung looked down. Not to hurt you, not to frame you, but because I needed leverage. Jimin stepped forward. Leverage? Taehyung's voice shook. Hybe was pushing me into a brand partnership I didn't want. I was being cornered into a long-term contract with an international agency. The only way I could stall them was by showing them I had something they didn't. I never meant for it to leak. Jungkook was trembling now. You used my files as leverage? I never sent them, Taehyung said quickly. I opened them. I showed the titles. Nothing left my screen. But someone must have been watching, maybe the same people who leaked the chat, the video, the audio. I didn't realize they were still inside the system. You still access them, Jungkook said, his voice breaking. Without asking. I didn't think you'd say yes, Taehyung whispered. And I was desperate. Jungkook staggered back a step. First the chat, he said. Then the call. Then the video. And now this. His eyes burned with tears. "Why did you all let me burn," he said, "when you knew I was screaming inside?" Jimin walked to him slowly. "Because we were screaming too. And none of us knew how to hear each other." Taehyung's voice cracked. "I'm sorry." Jungkook nodded, slowly, then turned and walked out of the room. And no one tried to stop him this time. He didn't go to his room. He didn't go to the studio. He walked outside, into the rain that finally fell, drenching him within seconds. And for the first time, in a long time, he didn't run from it. He let the storm take him, because sometimes the only way to feel clean again is to let everything fall apart first. The storm didn't stop. By the time Jungkook returned to the dorm, soaked from head to toe, it was 2:14 a.m. He didn't go in through the front door. He took the side stairwell, the one no one used except for smoke breaks and escaping unwanted attention. His wet clothes clung to him like a second skin.